Bum ba dun 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 da da dun 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 da da dun 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 da da dun 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 bum 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 da da dun dun. Alrighty, everybody. Hey, welcome. It's nighttime. Salim here. I'm here to talk to you guys about Adolescence. I have made some TikToks and some Instagram posts about it on my social media channels, and I'm going to do the same thing. I have to remember to look up here. So, what am I here to talk about? We are here to talk about Adolescence. It's going to be a review of Adolescence and a breakdown of it because I want to talk to you guys about my thoughts, and I feel like it's a really good show that's worth highlighting. I got to keep remembering. I'm sorry, guys. So anyway, you can probably tell it's my first time doing something like this, but let's get into it. So, I have my notes here. I'm going to be looking at my notes, and I'll look up at you guys and look at the notes. Yeah, cool. All right, perfect. Adolescence, great TV show, or not TV show, miniseries on Netflix that hit #1 trending, and I think it might still be top 10 at the time of recording this video. So yeah, good on them. And it is a story about a boy named Jamie who is accused of killing a girl in his school, and her name is Katie. And yeah, it's a short series about the boy named Jamie and his family and the authorities trying to figure out whether he did it or not. And as the audience, we're following along with them. So that's the premise of this short series, and it's only 4 episodes long. There's a lot to unpack, but I'm going to try to keep it succinct. But I have a few things that I think are worth noting, and it's just such a beautiful piece of art that I think it's worth preserving and talking about and making sure that I'm highlighting it. So let's get into it. It should go without saying, this is definitely going to include spoilers. So if you do not want spoilers about Adolescence, you should click off now. Episode 1, let's start off strong. What do I like about episode 1? So, use of silence when Jamie is being assigned an appropriate adult, interrogated. So I have that as like a little bit of a note. But what I wanted to talk about was the use of silence throughout the whole show, but specifically in this first episode, we sort of have Jamie walking into the police station when D.I. Bascom is bringing him in. And it's so weird how they set up the scene, right? Because we sort of have Jamie who's just been taken from his home, shocked, baffled, doesn't know what to say. On the car ride over, D.I. Bascom saying, yeah, you are, ask for a solicitor. This is what you should do, A, B, C, D. This is how you should, approach the whole process. And Jamie's just like, oh my God, like I just got arrested. I have no idea what's going on. He's crying. He doesn't know what's happening. So I think it's really interesting because once he gets brought into the police station, everybody's silent, right? Or not everybody's silent, but he's silent. A few other people are silent in weird positions. We sort of have Jamie like not speaking, not answering questions, even if it would be in his own benefit to speak honestly and to like, hey, say like, hey, I this is what's going on, or like, hey, I'll tell you exactly what's happening. When Jamie's asked, like, hey, did you do it? Where were you when this happened? Hey, and then even when D.I. Bascom shows him the actual like footage, like, oh, we see you following Katie, we see you following her, like we see you doing all of this weird and suspicious stuff. Explain yourself. He says nothing. He's just like, oh, I just don't know what's going on. I have no idea what's going on. And it's like, dude, say something. Like if you didn't do it, say something. And I'm gonna get into this later, but it starts off this really, really, really good pattern of like, you don't know whether he did it or not, even until the very end. And by the end, you kind of have an idea in your head, okay, maybe he did do it, but you still don't know. Because he never openly admits to doing it, but he also, like, he tries to say, oh, I'm just accused, I didn't do anything. But he never actually, like, speaks on the evidence. So it's really weird. His silence and his refusal to speak is really interesting. Also, something that adds to the scene is the use of music, right? So there's barely any music in the initial sequence of the first episode. So it's only when Jamie's sort of distressed or in certain transition periods, there's some music that's really good, sort of sinister and mysterious. But then sometimes the music sort of fades out to let you focus on Jamie's emotions, especially in the police station. You'll find when they're talking to him or during times like that, sort of the music fades out. And either is really quiet or fades out altogether so that you can focus on Jamie and his emotions, which I think is a really, really good use of music. Sometimes I feel like cinematic movies these days will use music all the time. Every transition has a musical cue. Every character entering screen has their own musical number. You know, every fight is going to have music, and of course, some scenes it makes sense to have music, right? But you don't always need music. Sometimes you can be silent and let the audience think for themselves. I'm also going to get to that later. So yeah, I wanted to go down that. And just in general, like the framing of the shots for the first episode is really, really, really amazing. So if you notice, all 4 episodes of Adolescence are one continuous shot. So each episode is one continuous shot throughout the whole thing. It's so amazing how they have managed to do that and that stylistic choice, because it makes it sort of feel like, oh, I'm following this person's story and then this person's story. So it starts out as like, okay, we're following D.I. Bascom. And then as, you know, Jamie sort of followed, then it's, okay, now we're following Jamie and his family, and then back to Bascom as he's taking Jamie in. That framing, it adds to the pacing of the episode, because sometimes the camera movements are back and forth following these people, especially when Jamie's being taken from his house and the family's up in arms. They're like, oh my God, what's going on? And the camera movements can follow that, right? And the camera movements can also show you how discombobulated the whole family is. But then once you get to a point where Jamie's feeling a little bit more stable and he's in the station, the camera movements are a lot more focused. Okay, we're gonna get our guy into position, and then we're gonna focus on this shot on Jamie. And it really highlights his emotions. Gives you, again, more time to take in his emotions. That's a really big theme in this show. Silence, lack of music in some areas, framing is all going to help the audience focus on what Jamie is feeling. And that's really, but not just Jamie, the whole audience, but in the first episode mainly, it's just Jamie. And I think the last part that I want to talk about with the first episode is the culmination of the whole scene, which is where D.I. Bascom and the rest of the team show footage specifically to Jamie and his father, showing, hey, you followed her. Now we see you over her, like stabbing her with, you know, something, or physically harming her. And you can see the look in the father's eyes. He's like, I can't believe this, because before he's defending his son, he's like, he's done nothing wrong, right? He's done nothing wrong. You have nothing to worry about. Now you can see the wheels turning in his head. Oh my God, Jamie actually did it. And he's not, and how could he not tell me this? And then Jamie tries to reach out to his dad for support. Mind you, this is something that's really interesting. Up until this moment, Jamie's kind of rejecting everybody's support, including his own parents. He's kind of yelling out to his mom and his dad in the beginning of the show when he's being taken from his home and his room. But he's not really like going to them. And then once he's brought into the police station, his dad even has to urge him to eat his cereal, right? He says, eat your corny, son. And he has to encourage him to eat a cereal. And Jamie's kind of like not really focused on that. Even when his dad is talking to him, like, how are you doing? He's still sort of distant from his father. In that moment, you can see Jamie realizes, oh my God, my dad doesn't trust me anymore. And his dad is like, I don't trust Jamie anymore. I don't know who this is. And you can see that shock in both of their eyes. Jamie tries to reach out to his father and say, Dad. And he tries to touch him, and his dad like recoils, right? It's like, you know, and it's a really good scene, because it's like, it shows the nuances of their emotions. I've just been shown irrefutable evidence, and you're lying to me. So you've done it. In my head, you've done it, right? I don't trust you anymore. And Jamie's like, no, Dad, please believe me, because he sees that he's losing his dad's support, which maybe plays into Jamie's manipulative side a little bit more, which we'll get to in episode 3. But it's like, oh, maybe it's playing into Jamie's manipulative side. Maybe Jamie's not telling him. Maybe Jamie did do it and he's not telling him. And he's trying to sort of get his father to like care about him. But then once he sees that his father doesn't care as much anymore, he tries to reach him, right? And reach for him, showing his true desperation and his true feelings. Something interesting to think about, right? Yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about for episode 1. So again, bear with me, guys. I'm trying to figure out this whole pacing thing of the video. I'm working on it, but those are my thoughts for episode 1. So now we're going to go to episode 2. Okay, whatever. So in episode 2, we get to follow D.I. Bascom as he is going, and his assistant, who, or not his assistant, but his partner, who is basically they're both going into Jamie's school, and they're going to investigate the kids, the teachers, and try to find more clues as to whether Jamie killed Katie or not. They're trying to see what happened. What happened to Katie? Does anybody know? So they're walking through the school. They're sort of checking it out. Kids are being really mean to the teachers. Teachers are kind of just like fed up with the kids. You could feel it's a lot of tension in the school. And they start out talking to a girl named Jade, right? They start by talking to a girl named Jade. And basically Jade is being really rude towards D.I. Bascom and D.I. Frank, who is his partner. And she's kind of like, oh yeah, it's like, she's like giving them an attitude. I don't know anything I don't know about what you're talking about. Katie was good. She was a good person. And it's like, and it's so weird because her attitude is sort of like defensive. It's really defensive. And you would think like, oh, if I knew Katie and I was best friends with Katie, which she clearly was by her emotions, if you're best friends with Katie, wouldn't you jump at the opportunity to want to tell the police what happened to her? Who could have killed her? Wouldn't you want to take every chance to say like, yeah, no, that Jamie kid, he's a bad egg and we gotta lock him up, guys. Like I knew him, I know him, he's like that incel type, right? Even playing into the incel thing. Oh, he's that incel type, whatever. Like I knew it. He's been stalking her, he's been rude to her, and he thinks he can do whatever he wants with her and he can control her life. Yeah, you should get him. Instead of that, she plays this defensive role. And it just goes to speak to the actors and the actresses in this film and our film short series, and how well they're able to play their roles. But Jade's sort of in this position where she's like, I'm being defensive. I don't want to tell you as much information, and she's not being very helpful. And it kind of plays into what I talked about with episode 1. Everybody is suspicious for one reason or another, right? In the first episode, we're seeing Jamie not only not speaking, but also, his attorney, or the guy who comes in who's his attorney, is being like weirdly like, oh, it's all gonna be fine, man. It's cool. It's chipper. And then the guards are like even like really nonchalant about doing things like taking off his clothes and like looking at him naked and that kind of like, they're really nonchalant about it, which makes it a little bit suspicious. And they don't seem to take it so seriously, even though a girl has died and was supposedly killed by Jamie. The second episode, we get Jade as that. Why are you being so defensive? It makes her suspicious, right? So then we continue on, and Jamie's history teacher, this is one I marked too, Jamie's history teacher. So in the scene in the second episode where all of them are going out to the schoolyard, right? And they're all basically being called out because somebody pulled the fire alarm, I think. One of the teachers, I forgot his name, but it was Jamie's history teacher, right? A taller man with a suit on, a little bit of a bigger build, black hair, I think. And like light brown skin. And D.I. Bascom asks him like, hey, you were Jamie's teacher. Like, did you ever see any of this in his demeanor? Like, was any of this ever possible for Jamie? Like, do you know why he would have done this? And his response is essentially like, oh yeah, man, like, I don't know. I never really knew him. I never talked to him. I saw him, but I never saw him. Like, I never saw him for who he was as a person. He was just a kid in my class. And then he ends it by saying essentially like, I think he says something like, oh yeah, these kids, man, they're crazy. Or like, these kids, they're like demons or whatever. He says something to that effect of like, these kids are uncontrollable. And then he walks off. And it sort of seems like, other than the teacher who's helping D.I. Bascom and D.I. Frank like walk through the school, everybody else sort of kind of just wants to like divert blame. And it seems like rather than trying to help find who did this to Katie, they just don't want to be a part of it, right? And they just want to move on. So that was a little bit of a strange interaction. Then right after that same scene, we get Jade, which is really interesting, right? Right after that scene, we get Jade. She goes up to Ryan, which was one of Jamie's friends, supposedly. She punches him, right? And then she gets him on the ground and then starts kicking him in the schoolyard. And that one also threw me off because I'm like, wait, what? Like, she knocks Ryan down and she's like, you killed him. You killed him. You killed him. Not you killed him. You killed Katie. Like, you killed her. And it's like, wait a minute, Ryan? But then the police were showing footage of Jamie. So why would it's never explained in the series, unless I missed something. Please leave a comment down below if you saw this and I didn't. Why would Jade go to Ryan and say, you killed her? And do it in the schoolyard, but not tell D.I. Bascom and D.I. Frank about it earlier in the episode when she had a chance to. At first I didn't even believe the scene. I was like, oh, she's faking it. Like, she's just acting out at this point, right? Like, she just sees Ryan. So maybe in her head, she does think Jamie did it, but since Jamie's not around, she's taking it out on Ryan. But then also at the same time, like, Bascom and Frank try to talk to Ryan. And at first he's like answering their questions, but then you can tell he's that type of kid who he thinks he's smarter than everyone else. So he's like, oh yeah, he's like, he sort of gives remarks to them, like tries to sort of like sneak diss them in a way, like give them some insults. And then when they're trying to ask him one last question, he's like, yeah, I gotta go. And then he just like walks out of the nursery and ignores them. And this is right after Jade knocks him down and punches him and he's injured. He goes to the nurse's office and D.I. Bascom and Frank follow him up there to question him, right? It's weird. It's just weird. Like, it adds more questions than answers. Why is Jade attacking Ryan? What does she know? What does Ryan know? Did Ryan actually do it somehow? And the footage is lying to us. So we have no idea what's going on after that, right? But very, very, very good narrative storytelling, right? Focusing on the literary devices, right? Kind of like we're back in film school. Focusing on the literary devices, very, very, very good narrative storytelling. They are using the acting and the sequencing of said acting to sow even more and more doubt. We get introduced to Jade early in the episode. She doesn't reveal anything helpful. Then she starts accusing one of Jamie's friends. We're like, what the heck? Then they question Jamie's friend and Jamie's friend Ryan. And Ryan's like, oh yeah, I don't know anything. Yeah, and he tries to play into it, but thinks he's smarter than them and is like, oh, whatever, and then leaves. Later, Ryan, Jamie's friend, ends up like running off and running out of class when they like try to interrogate him again. Only for him to get like basically hemmed up by D.I. Bascom and be like, hey, come in. And he's like put in the police car. And he's like, yeah, we're basically like bringing you in on suspicion. We'll let your parents know, yada, yada, yada. Cause he's running, right? So it's just really strange. The second episode is like, okay, D.I. Bascom and D.I. Frank are trying to find something out, but we're just going to use the actors and the sequencing of how they meet each person to sort of set this sort of pace and this theme of like, you can't trust anybody in this story. You can't trust the word of anybody. So we're sort of learning through this crime through the eyes of D.I. Bascom and D.I. Frank so far. So back to it. We were talking about the pacing and how they are sowing the seed for doubt in the audience's mind, right? So then we get Bascom's son in the middle of the episode, sort of basically talking to his dad, and it's like, hey, Dad, like, can you come here for a second? And you can tell from the beginning, like, he doesn't have the best relationship with his son, sort of seems distant, but his son goes to him and is like, hey, can I have a private moment with you? And he's like, yeah, sure. They get into the room. At first, he doesn't even say anything. He doesn't even want to say anything. He's like, you know what? It's like, you clearly don't want to be here. If you want to go, just go, right? And his dad's like, no, I'm here. Like, I'm here for you. I'm listening. Like, I'm not going anywhere. So it speaks a little bit to their relationship, right? But then the son is like, Dad, it's embarrassing because you're just walking around the school bumbling around. It's embarrassing that you're not getting it. And he sort of points out the fact that on Instagram, on social media, that Katie was leaving a ton of emojis, basically like red pill, that kind of stuff, on Jamie's pictures on Instagram, is basically insinuating that he's an incel. And sort of says exactly in a line, D.I. Bascom's son says in a line, like, yeah, he's saying he's an incel, like basically he'll be a virgin forever. And a ton of people are liking her comments on his post, so that sort of makes it even worse for him. Basically alluding that could be the motive, that Jamie actually could have been the person who did it, because like this is what he had motive. Like, Katie's egging him on, basically saying, you're going to be a virgin forever, you're an incel. And Jamie doesn't think that, and he gets upset. Maybe he got in a position with her where he was alone, as we saw in the footage, and he took advantage of it. So we get that. After the whole Ryan thing so I sort of jumped around a bit, but basically once we go through the whole Jade punching Ryan being interrogated, running away, episode continues on, Bascom And then Ryan gets caught again, finally gets caught the final time. Then we sort of get the ending sequence where Bascom's son and him are like, oh yeah, we'll go out to eat, and that ends it. So that's going to be it for episode 2's little review. Let's go to episode 3. Okay, episode 3. So this is a big one. This is one where we are seeing a woman, the assessor. I don't know what her exact position is, but something like therapeutic assessor. She's basically supposed to assess Jamie's mental state, and as they use as a running gag in the show, try to understand his understanding of the situation. So her name is Brioni Ariston. I looked that up. Brioni Ariston talks to, so basically she is coming into the ward or facility where Jamie's being held, because at this point some time has passed. That's the other thing. We've had some time skips throughout each of these episodes. Time has passed. Jamie has been processed. He's now in a full facility and he's been there for a while. He's been assessed a few times. We are just seeing Brioni's final visit to Jamie, which he doesn't know yet until she tells him later in the episode. She comes in and we get a little bit more sowing of doubt where she talks to the security guard. And the security guard sort of questioning her job. She's asking like, oh, can I see this extra footage? Or, asking for accommodations. And he's like, is that necessary to your work? And she's sort of trying to just tell him like, yeah, it's kind of none of your business, man. Like, get out of here. And he has this weird, creepy look. Again, very good acting. Security guard in that facility is super, 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 like his smile is just weird looking. He just looks creepy, right? Like the way he's presenting the character, he's doing it in a very good, like creepy way, right? And by the way, when I say security guard, I mean like the main guy in the camera room, not like the security guard that's near the door, right? But the actual camera security guard. So we sort of see how he acts, and it's like, this guy's really weird. Like, is he taking pleasure in this? Even though he says he hates his job later, it's like, is he taking pleasure in this? Like, why is he smiling so much? Maybe he's just excited that somebody new is here, or maybe he's weird, whatever. So then we go into Brioni and Jamie talking. And in this sequence, we get Brioni and Jamie in a closed off room, seems like a game room that's not being used, at a table, and they're talking. And she basically talks about a few topics. Hey, what was your dad like, right? How does your dad treat your mom? How does your dad treat women in general? How does your dad's, how is your dad around his friends? How's your dad when he's angry? And Jamie gets really upset at this. So he gets out, he sort of starts acting out. He gets up out of his seat and he starts lashing out at her. So the first time it happens, he slaps his drink off the table and is like, you don't get to dictate my life. Like, you don't get to tell me how to run my life, and you don't get to tell me what to do, and all he lashes out. And it seems like whenever he lashes out in this episode, it's always because he feels sort of threatened or boxed in. You know what I mean? Like, he feels like he's being judged by her or told what to do. And he's already boxed in, and he already feels like like I'm cramped in here, like I don't know what's going on. And he sort of puts on a brave act and a brave face. In the beginning, he's smiling, he looks like he's doing pretty good. And then as we go on throughout episode 3, we realize, yeah, he's not doing good, and he doesn't like being there. He's just convincing himself that it's okay because he thinks he has no other choice. And so that first time, he's like, oh, it's all accused though. Like, they've never, nobody's told me that I've done anything. It's all accused. Like, I haven't even been like actually tried and found guilty yet. I'm just accused. And while he's saying all this, she's like, sit down. And then that's when he lashes out and says, don't tell me what to do. So we sort of get that reaction. And then he tries to act cool again. Again, I have in my notes, like, weirdly happy for the conditions. For all the conditions that he's going through, for where he's staying, for clearly the guards he's surrounded by, it doesn't seem like they're necessarily abusive towards him. But it does seem like there's this weird relationship between the guards and him where it's like he knows there will be consequences if he acts out, but it doesn't seem like those consequences are violent. It just seems like they're weird, like maybe something that he doesn't like, or they do something that's really weird and warped, but like not necessarily immediately violent. I don't know. So he calms down and he tries to act cool. He's like, oh, I'm fine. And then she's like, you know what? I'm going to get up. I'm going to go get you another chocolate. And then in his head, he's like, oh, I don't deserve it. He's like, please just sit down, with more aggressiveness. And it's interesting. Self-worth is something that I think is a big theme in this show. especially for Jamie, because it makes you realize Jamie feels like his self-worth is being taken away. And we see this later with his father too. But Jamie feels like his self-worth is being questioned. He feels like his self-worth is questioned when Katie is dropping those comments on his Instagram post. She doesn't like me. She's questioning who I am. She's telling me that or not questioning, but telling me basically I'm going to be a virgin. I'm an incel, and saying negative things about me. Then Brioni is, now he's being accused of murdering her when he's saying he didn't do it. And then Brioni's coming in and is essentially telling him, like, hey, there might be a reason as to why you're doing this, as to what's behind it. The second lash out comes from basically her talking about exactly that with him, his self-worth. What do you think about yourself? Do you think that you look good? What do you think about her, right? What do you think about other people? Do you like girls? Those kinds of questions. Basically what he thinks about other people and what he thinks about himself. And the conversation ends up, I forgot exactly how it goes, but basically the conversation ends up going into him being ugly, and somehow it gets diverted into him thinking that she's calling him ugly. Brioni is calling him ugly. Because she's questioning him about what he thinks of himself. So he's like, well, why would you question me if you knew, like, you think I'm, what do you think of me, basically, right? And he gets upset at that. And he basically, he just gets really upset with himself and upset that in his mind, she's questioning his self-worth. So he lashes out again, gets really upset, starts getting in her face, starts like jerking her, like trying to, not like physically touching her, but like gets in her face and like tries to like scare her, whatnot. And it's really interesting seeing this because it's sort of like, are we getting the real Jamie? Like, is this how Jamie has always been? Or are we just getting a Jamie that like has become this as a result of everybody accusing him, and now everybody thinks he's this, so he might as well be this, and he has to put on a tough, brave face because he's in this position and he has to deal with it himself, and he doesn't want to bring his family in or anything. I don't know, and we never really get to see that, but I think some of it is definitely part of Jamie. Like, this wouldn't come out if somewhere deep inside him this didn't already exist. So we see Brioni actually get scared and like back off, and this is the first part, but also a continuation of other characters showing that they can be affected by these things, that they're not immune. But it's really the first time that we see it with her, right? With Bascom, we see him take a moment in the continuous shot where he's taking a breath. Oh my God, there's so much going on. He gets some moments to himself. He sort of takes a break, takes a deep breath. With a few of the adults in the room when Jamie's getting naked, we can see their faces. Some of them are kind of, like I said earlier, acting nonchalant, but his father's like, hey, what are you doing, right? And they can see the distress on his face. So we know that this situation can get to people, and they even, I think it's in the first episode, they say like, yeah, nobody likes these cases that have to do with kids. Like, nobody wants to deal with these. Because at the end of the day, they are cops, they are teachers, they are grown adults, everybody in the whole show, but they're children, right, that they're dealing with. And nobody wants to do this to a child, even if it's your job, right? Especially in the case of the police officers. But with Brioni, we see her get scared when Jamie actually approaches her like that, because she is scared of him, right? She's scared of him. I think in her mind, she's come to the conclusion that Jamie is out of control, that it probably comes somewhat from his father, and also from his friends, probably social media too. Is where the influences are coming from for him to get upset and angry and lash out at people. And I think she views him as a monster. I think she does, right? I think she's disgusted by Jamie. And I'll finalize that at the end of talking about the third episode, but she's disgusted by him. And I don't think she actually wants to be around him or talk to him. She's doing it because it's her job. But Jamie's too young to understand that. So he thinks, oh, you want to be here. And this is where that final lash out is from, at least if I'm remembering correctly, at least one of his lash outs are from her saying, this is it. This is my last time being, coming here. I'm not going to come anymore. And he gets really, really upset because he again feels like he's losing control. He's like, wow, here's this one person who I like kind of get along with well, but like sometimes she's really annoying. She's difficult because she asks too many questions. Now she's telling me she's not coming back. Does she not like me? Why does she not want to be around me? Is it me? And he's making it about himself. Again, that self-worth, right? And so he gets really upset. And the sort of final part of that scene is Jamie gets upset for the last time. The guard takes him out. He starts yelling at her. No, yeah. Starts yelling at her, right? And just before that scene, we get Jamie sort of like egging her on, almost trying to like calm himself down, and like leads her on to thinking that maybe he's going to answer her questions truthfully and not be a smart aleck about it. And then he sort of smirks at her and is like, you really thought I was going to say something serious. You know what I mean? Like he gives her that sort of treatment. Then the whole thing with him lashing out again happens. He gets taken out of the room by the guard, and he's screaming while this is happening, screaming while he's being taken out, which really shows he's not in a right mental state, right? He's just lost it at this point, and he doesn't think highly of himself. He probably doesn't think highly of the women around him, and honestly, he probably doesn't think highly of anybody, right? Even his friends. Like I think there was even a part in there, again, I don't like saying I think, but I'm pretty sure I remember a part in there talking about his friends and talking about how like one of his friends like wasn't even that smart. So I don't even think he thinks highly of his friends. He just doesn't think highly of anybody. Yeah, it's really interesting. So he's getting taken out, he's screaming at her, full mental breakdown. And Brioni when he's finally taken out of the room, she starts crying. And this is a really important part of the episode and of the show. She starts crying. And she looks at the sandwich that she offered Jamie in the beginning of the episode and doesn't even take it off the table. She when she looks at it, she like starts gagging, like, right? She doesn't even want to deal with it. And that's what made me believe that she's disgusted by him. She doesn't even want to have to touch anything about him. And we've all been, I feel like, in those positions where we've, not necessarily to that extent, but where you've sort of gotten out of a bad situation, you're like, you know what, I don't even want to deal with it. It may be a job that you don't like, you're leaving, and you're like, you know what, I don't even want to go into the place of business anymore, whatever it is, whether it's a store, restaurant, big office, whatever. You're like, I don't even want to be here anymore. I don't want to see anything that reminds me of this experience. And that's sort of the reaction that she's having. It's a very real human reaction to something that you don't want to be around, something that you view as negative. And so she's sort of dealing with all of this. And when she walks out, she sort of cries, pulls herself together, and then just leaves, right? And I think it's the final message that I got, the two big messages that I got from this episode. Number one, did Jamie do it or not? We still don't know. But he definitely is capable, right? After this episode, we learn he's 100% capable of doing it. Number two, adults can get scared. They can feel trauma just like kids do. And of course, a lot of you watching this are going to know that. But a lot of times as kids, they can sort of get into this mode. I mean, we've all been there, right? As kids, where you think, oh, because they're adults, they're like magically different beings and they don't feel the same feelings we do, or we get to cry and everything, but we don't want to see the adults in our life cry, or whatever preconceived notion as kids people have, right? And that they have. And we sort of get to see through Brioni's acting and through her character. No, adults do feel this. This is horrible for her. She doesn't want to be here doing this. This isn't how she wants to spend her day, right? She doesn't want to talk to a kid who clearly has the ability and the capability to treat people poorly and maybe killed this girl and has a horrible mental state and is lashing out at her even though she's trying to help him. So she cries, right? And we really get to see how she's dealing with that. And I really love how they included that in the episode. So let's go to episode 4. Episode 4, Celine here. You guys locked in with me? You have snacks, water, cool? Yep. Last part. So, episode 4. So, with episode 4, we get introduced into a scene where it is Jamie's father's birthday, right? And in this scene, we are following him as he sort of, him and his family are trying to reconcile with Jamie and basically his absence, right? The fact that he's gone. And they're slowly coming to terms with the fact that, okay, maybe he did do it. And maybe he, we don't know yet. He hasn't been put to trial yet, but maybe, he might end up going to jail, but we're still holding out hope that he can come back home one day, right? We come into the scene and Jamie's father's truck is vandalized, right? And so he's extremely upset. He asks the neighbors, hey, like, did you see anybody come up here and do it? Like, did you see anything? And he's sort of getting really upset. He's like, there's like 5 people around, I guess, in the neighborhood. And he's like, and nobody's seen it. And he gets really upset. It's his birthday, but despite it being his birthday, he sort of gets frustrated and he tries to get a bucket out and some water and tries to wipe it off and scrape off the spray paint on his truck, right? Mind you, before this, he is sort of talking with his wife, and she's like, oh, it's like, maybe it's time to move on. Like, not necessarily time to move on, but like, maybe it's time to move back to like home. My family, I think she mentioned a family member. My family member could get you a job. And he gets insulted. He's like, I don't need work. Like, I don't need that work. Like, and it would be worse, like 10 times worse. Sort of alluding to the fact maybe working under her family would kind of feel like they're trapped, like they have no choice, like they're beholden to the family members. So he's like, no, and he gets really heated about it. And then we get into that van scene where he's scrubbing it off, and the mom goes up to Jamie's sister's room and sort of talks to her and is like, yeah, she knows in her head, some soap and water is not going to cut it for that van. But I think her and the daughter are just trying to hold together what little piece of their sanity and happiness they have left. But the dad, I think, with his connection with Jamie, the dad's getting hit hard, and he feels really bad about this, probably worse than anybody, which is why Jamie probably asked for him to be his appropriate adult to represent him, right? Because their bond is very close. Jamie looks up to his dad, right? And his dad, even though maybe he hasn't said it so much, I'm sure his dad very much so loves Jamie. Even though when Brioni asked Jamie, oh, is your dad loving? He's like, ew, no, that would be weird or whatever. It's interesting because it shows that whole sort of idea of like, oh, you have to be masculine. In order to be masculine, it means you can't show emotion. You can't be loving. You can't be kind, right? You have to be firm. You have to be hard. You have to be cold, right? And clearly that's what Jamie thinks of his father to some extent, which is what she was alluding to. But anyway, we already went over episode 3. So we get to see some of that play out in episode 4. So his rage with the vandalization of his truck, he then talks to his daughter and his wife and is like, okay, we're all going to go, and we're going to go to the hardware store and we're going to get some paint, and I'm just going to paint over it, and then we're going to get the day back. That's what they say. We're going to get the day back. And at first the mom and the daughter are like, hey, why? Like, why would we go do this? Like, you just need to calm down. And he's like, please. And you can see him insist, please, like, as almost like, I need this. Like, please just come with me, right? So they all get in the van, they talk, and on the ride there, it's sort of this eerie, like, happiness, kind of, where they're like, okay, we're going to convince ourselves that everything's okay, even though it's not. And the dad's losing his mental stability, the mom's getting fed up of it, and the daughter is barely holding on because both of her parents are kind of checked out, right? And she's lost her brother, her younger brother. They sort of talk about like getting takeout and like what they want to do for the day and like going to an aquarium or like other places. It's sort of nothing talk. And I'll be honest, when I was watching it, it's really easy to want to skip through what they're saying and not pay attention. But you sort of have to say to yourself, no, this is important to the storytelling. Even though it's one continuous shot, and so not a lot of cuts, not a lot of bam, big in your face music or zoom ins or anything like that to sort of get your attention. You have to keep your attention on the details and on the slow pacing of the show. So then we get to see the sister and them and the mom and the father talking together in the car, and they eventually end up getting there. Again, pay attention to the conversation when you watch it yourself, or if you already watched it. Pay attention to the conversation that they have in the van. Again, it seems like grasping at straws just to try to get the day back, right? So they get to the hardware store, and then a really weird interaction occurs, again alluding to this mystery of the show of like not necessarily who did it, but like it's just weird, like everybody's suspicious. One of the guys who's in the hardware store, who's an employee there, speaks to Jamie's dad, and he's like, oh, I know you, because Jamie's dad is like, hey, can you give me the paint? He's like, oh, I actually recognize you. He's like, I just want to let you know, we're like, there's other people like me, we believe in you, and we believe your son's innocent, we think you're doing the right thing. And like, I got to see the autopsy report of her and like what happened. And it's like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, and he starts mentioning specific details like, oh, how deep the cuts were and all that. And I'm like, what? Like, how does this guy know all these details? And why does he care that much? And why are you like going up to his father and being mad insensitive, right? Like instead of saying like, hey, sorry for what's going on, like let me help you with that paint and then moving on, he's like trying to like talk to his dad and almost like reaffirm him, like, oh yeah, you're doing the right thing, man. Like we believe in your son's completely innocent, even though he doesn't know anything about the case, right? He thinks he knows, but he doesn't. Dad gets fed up, he gets a very serious face, and he's like, hey, just give me the paint, please. And he does that. So he's like, okay, he's like, fine. He goes and gets them the paint. He walks out, sort of looks back at the guy who's now helping some other customers, and then keeps walking out. And then he sees the boys out again near his van, and he sort of sees them, or like not near his van, but like somewhat adjacent to his van on the trail, basically on the other side of a fence towards that's like fencing off the store. They're on the other side that's next to a bike trail and a walking trail, and they're sort of looking at him laughing. And he walks up to them and is like, gets hold of them, hems one of them up by their shirt and is like, hey, like, why would you do this to somebody? Like, you have no idea what I'm going through. Why would you do this to somebody? Kind of like throws the kid and then throws his bike and whatever. And it sort of shows you like what Brioni was alluding to in the third episode is probably closer to accurate than we all know. Like, maybe the dad can get a little bit aggressive because we see him putting his hands on somebody else's kid. Despite what they did, despite it being wrong, doesn't give you the right to put your hands on them, right? But he does it anyway, and even his wife says, like, this isn't you. Like, why are you doing this? Like, this is not you, like, throwing kids' bikes and, like, you know, grabbing them up and yelling at them. Like, that's not you. So I somewhat believe Jamie because his wife's saying that, you know, his wife is also saying, like, this isn't you. But clearly this behavior has been displayed before, maybe in very dire situations, but somewhere before. And I feel like Jamie's seen it. Maybe the wife doesn't know about it, but I feel like maybe Jamie and his father have had a few moments where his dad's gotten really upset and Jamie's internalized it. Could have been when they were out eating at a restaurant, going, I don't know, to a certain event or something. But even the part of like Jamie's father, they're talking about like the soccer games. And he's like, oh yeah, my dad was in the third episode and in the fourth episode, they talk about it, right? Third episode, Jamie's like, oh yeah, my dad was at a soccer game and I was doing poorly. You know, he tried to get me into soccer to like toughen me up. I was doing poorly. And I, you know, when I did poorly, I looked at him and he just wouldn't look at me. Right. And then his, you know, later in episode 4, his father was like, yeah, it's like, I remember that game. And it's like, I put him in there to try to toughen him up, to try to be you know, more like a man. Right. And I just would see him do so poorly and I could just feel him looking at me. And he's like, I just couldn't look at him. And then we see that happening again in episode 1 when he finally realizes Jamie might have done it. He again rejects him and doesn't look at him. And I feel like Jamie's internalized this, and this isn't the first time it's happening. This is somewhat of a pattern. And Jamie's internalized all of this. And maybe that's part of his self-worth. Maybe he thinks his father doesn't truly love him, or he thinks this is what you have to do to be a man. Being a man means not loving somebody, right? Not showing care or kindness or affection, but rejecting them, lashing out at them when they do something that you don't like. And I think he gets that from his father. So I think Brioni was pretty spot on. But basically he gets fed up with the kids, throws the paint onto the van, covers the vandalism barely. You know, it is covering it, but he's sort of just tossed the can of paint on the side of the van. So it's kind of doing the job, but it looks ugly. And then he's sort of like, just get in the car. Security guard comes out and it's like, hey, are you going to clean that up? Because paint's now falling on the pavement of the parking lot. He's like, no, I'm not going to pave. He starts like yelling at him, pointing at him. And the wife is just begging, please just come back. Please just come back. So he finally gets in the car, and on the way back, Jamie calls, right? And remember what I was saying about the earlier conversation where they're sort of like being eerie but convincing themselves that it's okay. Now they sort of know the day's not okay anymore. Like the day's been ruined. The day's over, right? But Jamie's calling and maybe there's going to be some brightness. Oh, maybe Jamie's getting out. But he's very eerie. He's not. He's sort of just answering their questions. Very like matter-of-factly like, yeah, how you doing? Good. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah, I have people I can reach out to and talk to while I'm here. And then he drops a bombshell out of nowhere. Yeah, I'm going to plead guilty. You know, I'm going to plead guilty. And, you know, this is the deal they can get for me, whatnot. And you can sort of see everybody in the car baffled and sort of trying to be supportive of him, be like, oh, okay, well, good for you, and they're sort of like hiding behind their tears. They're like, why? Because they can't see him, right? This is just a phone call from the facility. But they're sort of trying to like hide their emotions and be like, oh, okay. Like, well, okay, if you think that's right. But then when they get home, the father and the mother and the daughter, they all start crying because they realize, they're no longer trying to be strong for Jamie. They realize like, wow, he's not coming home, right? For a long time. Like for a long time, he's not coming home, and this is it. And the mother has a conversation with the daughter, and I think it's a good conversation. But I think the conversation I really want to focus on in this breakdown is the conversation between the mother and the father, because they sort of have this basic conversation, and the gist of it is like, are we culpable? Like, is this our fault that he turned out this way? And I like how the mother is so honest with the father, and she's like, we created him. It's like, there's some sort of, we had to have been a part of this somehow because we created him, right? He's just a kid. He's only like, I think it's like 13 or something like that in this, maybe around that age. He's just a kid. And then the father responds, well, we created the daughter, we created our daughter too. Like how did we create her when we also created him? And, the mother's very honest, and she's like, I think we have to admit that like we were part of it, like we created him and we have to live with that. And at the very end, we get a very, very somber and sad scene where the father goes into Jamie's room, holds the teddy bear in his bed, cries and sort of cries over it. He's like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. He kisses it on the forehead, and a song is playing, Through the Eyes of a Child, which is a very, very, you should look it up. But Through the Eyes of a Child is playing in the background, and Jamie's father at the very end says, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have done better. I should have done better. And that's where we sort of end off the series. So I will also get Editing Salim in here to talk about the song, because the song has some meaning. But overall, that last message is really like, here's this kid that we raised, and this is our fault. And as a parent, I should have done better. And I feel like it's a really good message to send, because I feel like there are definitely kids out there who will treat adults like they don't matter, like they can't have feelings, all of that. And on the other hand, there are definitely adults who sort of treat kids like they're just devils and just ignore them until it's too late. And suddenly something like this happens to your kid, or maybe, heaven forbid, there's an accident, the kid passes away, or they're injured or whatnot. Now you want to care about them. But in the moment when everything was good, and like they said in the conversation, I didn't see it. I checked in with him the whole time, and I never saw anything wrong with him. I had no idea this could happen. So, very, very interesting series. Amazing in the 4th episode. Really what they used here is a lot of silence in the car rides. Again, the use of silence to sort of have you focus on the conversations. And I know in the 4th episode, for some people out there, it might be tempting to skip it. I urge you not to. Don't skip through the conversations. Don't skip anything. Watch it all from start to finish. So yeah, I am going to leave you guys with my conclusion coming right up, and then we'll end the video. Okay, so conclusion. What do I think about the TV series here, short series Adolescence on Netflix? What do I think? I'm going to, for the rating, I think if I had to give it a rating on a scale from 0 to 10, my heart is telling me an 8.5. And the reason why I give it an 8, I'm almost thinking 10 out of 10, right? Maybe a 9.5, but I'm waffling a little bit. Here's my thing. On one hand, I love artistic stories, and I love stories that push our boundaries of what we think of normal modern day media. So on one hand, I love the silence. I love the use of suspicion and of people sort of reacting in nonchalant ways, or Jade acting out randomly, not giving us a clue of what her role is and everything. Jamie sort of never acknowledging the evidence, so now we don't know whether he did it or not, but then showing up with Brioni as though he's like this really evil person and a really evil kid who like thinks that he should have control over Katie's body and whatever. I love that setup. I love the longer episodes. I love the final episode with a ton of talking and a ton of exposition about the father and who he really is and who his character is and how much that could play off on Jamie. And their acknowledgement that, yeah, it is our fault as parents at the end. At the same time, I do wish that there was just a little bit more of explanation of the story. Even just like a few questions answered, but there were, I think, too many questions left unanswered. Don't get me wrong, I like the mystery. I think too many stories end in a fairy tale happy ever after ending where everything's explained for us. In films like this, or in short series like this, or whatever you want to call it, usually it's left up to the audience. Well, what do you think? We're going to provide you with the story, and it's up to the audience to sort of look at the evidence, look at what's been presented, and determine what they think. If you ask me, I think Jamie did it. I think it's the big wrench in that is that Jade accused Ryan of doing it, and they did end up taking Ryan in. It could have been Ryan on the screens. I'm pretty sure Jamie did it. Seeing his character, it looks like Jamie did it, but there's probably about a quarter of my brain that says he didn't do it, because quarter of my brain that says he didn't do it because maybe what he was showing with Brioni was just as a result of going through this traumatic process of being taken from his home and arrested as a kid. However, I'm pretty sure he did it. Like three quarters, the other 75% of my brain is like, yeah, no, he definitely did it after seeing how he acted with her, right? But I would have liked a little bit more answered. Why did Jade act out like that, right? Number one. What was Ryan's play in this? Like, why is Jamie not addressing the evidence head on? And why was he willing to admit to guilt by pleading guilty? All very real questions that I feel like at least those should have been answered. But I can see that with the storytelling, they were intentionally left unanswered. I can respect that. I would have liked it just a few more breadcrumbs left around the trail of the story so that I could gain a little bit more information on what happened. But I can respect the narrative storytelling, and I can respect that the style they did and the style they chose. And I can respect the fact that they want to let the audience decide. That's my guess. So I think 8.5 to like 9.5 is what I'd say, somewhere in there. Maybe you could say 9. Maybe we'll say 9 out of 10. Great storytelling, great pacing, very slower than most modern media, but I think that's a good thing. Only 4 episodes, so not dragging the story out. Overall, just played out very, very well. Like, great acting, amazing acting. Great use of music, wasn't overdone, only used when it needed to be, right? So even the framing of those those continuous shots, amazing. So yeah, maybe let's settle with that. 9 out of 10 for Adolescence. I loved it. I think it's a great short series. I highly recommend you all watch it. I think it's a great story. Really, I think the biggest life lesson that you could get out of it, if there's anything that you take away from this, and of course, not every show needs a life lesson, but if you want to take one from it, look out for your loved ones. And don't assume that they're okay just because they look okay. Check in with them, spread kindness, spread positivity, spread joy. Try to understand those around you and put yourself in their shoes. Everybody can be having a bad day. You never know what somebody's going through under the hood, in their brain, in their heart, in their soul. You never know. So try to look out for your fellow people around you. Try to look out for your community, your family, your friends, everybody around you, even the people you don't know, because you never know what they're going through. So I feel like if there's any life lesson, it's that, and hang on to those loved ones for dear life, and never take their presence in your life for granted. So yeah, I really had fun talking to you guys today, telling you my thoughts about Adolescence, what I thought. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the entire show, what you thought about certain things that I said, if there's any improvements I can make on my videos and all that. Let me know down in the comments below. Leave a like. I'm going to be putting more content out on my social media. So right now I have TikTok and Instagram, so go follow me over there and leave likes on my content and all that stuff. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will talk to you guys in the next one. Wishkeeper Productions, out.